Have you watched Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum? Well, if you have, I'm pretty sure you would have been crazy about that killer red outfit that Kareena Kapoor wore. I even asked my folks to get it for me, but guilty as charged, I don't think I was the only one. Well, recently we had the Met Gala, we had the Cannes, we had Nancy Tyagi's amazing outfit that she built from scratch for the red carpet, and it shot her to stardom. Why is all of this so important? What kind of laborious hard work goes behind bringing that one perfect look come to life? And why is it so important for the screen, for the fashion shows? What's the essence behind all of this? Uncovering it all for me in this episode of Karishma Connect is Shivangi Gandhi, who was recently the head of wardrobe on the sets of Al Eid Edin, which is an Emirati feature film directed by Maita Alavadi, who I also interviewed on this podcast a couple of weeks ago. So go check out that episode as well. But Shivangi gives me a completely different perspective in this one, speaking to me about behind the scenes of costume design, styling, fashion, all of that. What goes into bringing alive glitz and glamour, be it on the red carpet, be it on the screen? How do clothes end up telling a story beyond the character itself?
It's a pleasure to have you on Karishma Connect. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's wonderful to have you, and I'm so grateful for your time and really looking forward to all your insights.
Hi, Karishma. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for looking into my story and liking it. And I'm just very glad I'm here on this platform to share.
Excited, isn't it? Great. The first question I start with on this podcast is tell me about the journey so far, because I believe strongly nobody will say it better than you. So I'll leave the onus on you. Please dive me right in on it.
Thank you. A lot went on. I've been in the business for 10 years now. And I started off wanting to do fashion design because that's just something I wanted to do as a child. Literally, as a child, I was 10 years old when I decided, yes, I'm going to do this. And everybody around me thought it was a joke. And they're like, oh, she's going to grow older and she's going to forget about it and actually study. Because obviously, in the Indian mindset, we don't think of fashion design as a real career or a real education. And I'm so happy now that that's changing because anything in the field of art is just as important as anything else. So that's the first thing I want to establish here, that if your child is artistic, why not give them a chance to move forward in that direction? Because they love what they're doing and eventually they'll make a career the same way I did. Because I didn't really know where to start. And obviously when you're a child and you look at fashion design, you just think of it as, oh, it's going to be like this glamorous career and so much fun. And then when you actually start doing it, you realize it's everything except glamorous. So, so I got that reality check when I started studying. And yeah, after I finished my education, I decided I wanted to work as a designer right up in the beginning. So I started off as internships like any other junior designers would. I started my journey in women's wear, haute couture, and evening wear. And moving forward from there, I started working for menswear, which was a completely different direction. I used to work for Varoin Marva. I worked with him for about 4 years, and it was a really good learning experience because I not only learned an entire different field of design, but I also learned how to deal with one-on-one clients, catering to clients that are HNI, and that kind of boosts a lot of your confidence because you're speaking to people that have access to everything they could buy in the world, and they've chosen you, and you need to put your best foot forward to make sure you can give them the best service they deserve.
Right.
And yeah, that's where I started off as a designer. And then I moved on towards styling in 2018. I got my first job as a costume stylist, assistant costume stylist on a film. And that was where my styling journey started. And from then on, I've just not looked back. I went into celebrity styling and red carpets. And after that, I came back here and I moved into costume styling again for film. And I just did Al Eid Edin now. This has been one of the biggest achievements of my career, and I'm very excited to talk about it further. Yeah, that's pretty much where I am today now.
Tell me about that experience.
That was one of the most, I'd say, a very surreal experience for me because I was the only Indian on that project that was in the creative department. And it
it's
just
an
felt.
Emirati film. So it's so different. It's an Emirati film. It's a completely different cultural background that you're dealing with.
Exactly. For me, the only thing is just because I am born and raised in Dubai. For me, it was a very it felt a lot like home because I've been somebody that loves designing abayas for the longest time. I love the Emirati culture. So for me, this was like, okay, I can be not Arab, but still do what they want me to do. And just the whole experience was amazing. We were so many different nationalities working on the film, but we never felt like we're so many different people coming from so many different cultures. Everybody just came together. It became a complete melting pot. And the set was kind of the essence of Dubai. Like we all worked together to a very clear, singular vision. And
Yeah.
today we see it turned out to be better than what any of us imagined.
Yeah, absolutely. It's brilliant. Tell me, having gotten out, because I know that living in the UAE as a creative and then making it into the films, that's a completely different journey. It takes a lot of effort. How did you navigate that between both the worlds?
I feel like when I was younger, we also have this narrative of if you want to achieve something, it's going to be difficult and you have to like really work hard to get there. Of course, you really do. You can't like sit in your house and be like, it's going to happen for me.
Hmm.
Get out there, network with people, and build confidence, I'd say, because I was a very shy person. I am an introvert. I don't really talk to people easily, not because I don't want to talk to them. It's mostly because I'm in my head and I just feel like if I approach someone, how would they feel? If they don't like me, all of that. And I've slowly tried to cut those conversations in my head. And I think that's helped me a lot. And I think the journey is if you tell yourself you can do it, the universe is actually going to open doors for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it starts with you. You have to believe that you are eventually going to get to where you are. Sometimes maybe putting a timeline on it is a little it's kind of constricting yourself because you never know what's going to happen. But if you get out there and actually present yourself in the best way you think you have, there are a lot of people here to listen to your story. There are a lot of people who want you to grow and you will meet the right kind of people. So
That's
it's just
beautiful.
necessary to put yourself out there.
Very true. Very true. It always works. What about fashion design specifically fascinates you? How do you think design kind of empowers you as an individual or as a professional as well?
Um, from a very young age, I'd say that's the way of speaking for me
Hmm.
because a lot of people forget that when you enter a room, nobody really knows you. So the first impression you're setting is literally what you look like. And if you walk into a room not taking yourself seriously enough to present your best self, it's injustice to yourself.
Very true.
So I feel like design is something that allows you to speak what you really feel.
Hmm.
And I am somebody that's an artistic person, so for me that's an artistic expression.
Hmm.
What I usually choose to design is very androgynous clothing.
Hmm.
It's something that I feel empowers the man and woman because we're actually talking about a unisex narrative, and
Yeah.
equality is something we've been looking forward to forever. And that
Yes.
really puts things into perspective because let's say you're wearing a jacket and it's equally empowering for a man and a woman,
Yes.
and you walk into a room and you feel confident. So the whole idea for me, design is all about confidence.
Hmm. And do you have a process that you follow for inspiration? How do you go about the journey
um,
from taking
It depends.
years
It
to?
depends on the kind of collection I'm designing. Because
Hmm.
if someone's expecting me to design evening wear, of course, my inspiration would come from everything else except fashion, because you're kind of trying to create something that is extravagant.
Hmm.
You need something that's new. You need to basically create from scratch. But let's say you're designing a ready-to-wear collection, and somebody wants to trickle down fashion that's on the runway and make
Hmm.
it available to the mass. When in that case the process kind of changes a little bit because we also look at the competitors that we have in our market, and then we design accordingly.
Hmm.
And for in that space the client really matters because you're putting something out there that needs to be sold immediately. So it's a different sort of design process depending on the kind of collections I'm making.
But tell me, because people often overlook these things. Like, people often overlook what is the entire process. Like, we are so used to, as an outsider, we are so used to seeing that full finished product that we wouldn't know what all has gone into bringing that finished product and, finally leading to that image. I know it's an extensive process, but can you share some light on that?
Actually, that's a very good question because this would also answer uh, the question that clients usually have, that why is your product expensive?
Yeah.
Because first things first, um, when you look at the, like, let's say the Indian demographic or the Middle Eastern demographic, fashion is still a very new concept here,
Hmm.
design in general. And when you look at European designers, most people there are already aware that if you're buying a product that is custom made, there
Hmm.
is a long process that goes into it, and the person that's designing also has a certain value attached to the product.
Hmm.
So the first thing that you are basically spending on is an idea that was created in someone's mind.
Hmm.
And an idea can be finished in many different ways, right? You can do it like, um, let's say, finish it in 2 days, and then you can actually work on a product which is timeless, that would
Hmm.
take sometimes 2 or 6 months to produce,
Hmm.
especially when we talk about bridal clothing, or we talk about red carpet clothing. We usually go in and speak to designers sometimes 6 months in advance, because we need so many fittings just before we actually get the final product in place.
Wow. Yeah. And also the
And
story, like say for example, um, Alia Bhatt's outfit for one of the one that Sabyasachi
the
created
Met
recently.
Gala, yes.
Color, yes. Now that had a story of itself. One wouldn't imagine when they saw it that it would have such a wonderful story behind it and so many people around.
That, and also what most people are not understanding is, you saw a sari which had so much embroidery. The
Yeah.
amount of times they must have just exchanged embroidery swatches to make sure that the embroidery is on point. The amount
Mm.
of colors you test out, you test things out under the camera, because she's being photographed on a red carpet on such a huge platform, so there is no room for error.
Yeah.
So when you're doing things like this, everything, the fit has to be to the T. Every single detail on that garment, including like the last bit of embroidery threads, have to be perfect. So these things require very extensive amounts of time, a lot of human labor. And I feel like the more fast fashion is taking on in the world right now, people are forgetting the essence of waiting for a beautiful garment, because this is also part of sustainability. If
Mm.
you learn to wait, you get a garment that will last you 10 years. Like
Mm.
me personally, even as a shopper,
Mm.
I choose to buy things that will last me for 8 to 10 years. And I very openly talk about it, because people don't understand the amount of effort that goes into making a good garment.
Yes.
And it's almost, when you're buying it, you're investing in the piece, because you know it's going to last you for a while. And as a designer, even when I design, this is how I want to think. Because my client is not the client that's going to just pick up something, use it for 3 days, and throw it away. My
Yeah.
client needs to have repeat value for the garment. So
Yes.
I think that's a very big change in consumer behavior that we should go forward to, because it's also about protecting the planet at the end of the day.
What do you think is exciting about the current era of fashion, though? Because there's also a time that where we are transforming on the brighter side of things. So, what do you have to say to that?
I feel like just the fact that you said right now that there are other people that touched on the same topic,
Yeah.
that to me feels so good, because there are other people that are pushing this narrative.
Yeah.
I started my own brand, which was based on sustainability. And
Mm.
when, in this time and age, when you start a brand that is sustainable, most people also look at you with the eye of like greenwashing. Oh, you're saying you're sustainable because, oh, it's a cool term and
Mm.
everybody's using it nowadays. But
Yeah.
brands that are really into this are willing to provide accountability. And I
Yeah.
think that is what is the most exciting thing about this era, because even investors, earlier venture caps, bigger investors, they would just not look at sustainable brands as something that could be transcending into, let's say, we don't have sustainable brands right now that have turned into a Dior, because obviously Dior has a
Right.
history of years. But today, there are investors that believe that if we invest in a sustainable brand today, they could reach somewhere close to brands like that. And
Yeah.
that shift in the narrative itself is such a huge deal, because people are wanting to put money into sustainable brands. And
Yeah.
if bigger conglomerates are supporting us in this situation, there is actually going to be change in terms of consumers too. People will want to buy. There, I love the fact that Gen Z is so
I
focused
was
on
going
the
to ask
fact
you
that
that.
that they actually read the labels of what they're buying. And for me, that is like, wow, thank God. Like
Yeah.
what we were trying to do is kind of working. So I feel that's the most exciting part of this era. And I think with the kind of informed generation that we have now, good change is coming. And I'm very excited.
Tell me, a huge part of your job is also working with talents from around the world, like you said, even on I'll Be That In. Different people. What has that taught you about life in general? How has that kind of empowered you with your own choices in life?
That's also a very good question. So I want to start off a little bit with the personal narrative that you set in your mind before you actually go out there and meet other nationalities. So growing
Mm.
up in the UAE, and because I went to an Indian school, I was always mostly around Indian people. And
Mm.
my biggest, I feel like, inferiority complex was that if I go and talk to, let's say, somebody from another nationality, or let's say I go talk to someone that's in a bigger league compared to mine, they just wouldn't want to listen. And that was such a wrong narrative I fed myself because I just made that up.
Up there.
When you kind of cut that thought process, you realize you can make friends from any part of the world. And there are people that are from different parts of the world that have a very, very similar journey to you. And just
Yeah.
the fact that I get to learn about other cultures, I think being in the UAE, we're very, very lucky that we're
Mm.
exposed to so many
True.
different cultures in the world. And
Yeah.
people don't understand how enriching that can be. If you just go out there and take that experience, it's going to make you grow so much faster and so much more than staying in your own bubble.
Yeah.
And I think that was the most beautiful experience about working with these many different nationalities. I just got to learn about their cultures, their food, and just everyone laughs the same way. It teaches you also so much about humanity, that we're all eventually the same.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on our differences, if we focus on what is the same amongst all of us, life is so much more beautiful.
Now, you've
Yeah.
had a similar journey in that sort where both of us have kind of gone back to our roots and then explored. That is a whole different world from my industry perspective. I want to know what it is from your side because you've been on the red carpets, you have, and this does not come out of the usual fascination of films. It comes more from the perspective of understanding how that big mad world kind of functions, you know.
It is, I mean, like every other industry, you don't talk about it in other industries so much because it's not as in your face and like it's not in the media all the time. There is good and bad both to it. It's also something about understanding that you have to be a rooted person, because when you enter an industry like this that's so competitive and
Yeah,
it's so cutthroat,
yeah,
there are a lot of people who'll be willing to do whatever it takes to get up to the next ladder. And at the end of the day, you need to decide where you're going to draw your lines and how much of let's say bad things you're going to do to other people to get to where you want to be. Because to me personally, a lot of feedback that I would get in Bombay is that, oh, you're too sweet, you're too naive. And obviously, because I came from such a protected country, I didn't know what I was entering.
yeah,
And when I went in there, I still realized being a kind person is not, it's not hurting me in any way. And in
yeah,
fact, I started noticing other people respond to me better because I
yeah,
was kind to them.
yes,
So I don't feel like anybody should tell you that, oh, change who you are because you need to fit in to this space. No, I feel like kindness works everywhere. You can get your way, you can get things done your way too, even without having to be a bad person. And yeah, it was, being on red carpets was a lot of high pressure. It was also my first few times I was like very, very nervous. And even though I was working as an assistant, the amount of things that you need to get done before the celebrity walks down the red carpet, like you might be prepared, let's say a week in advance, but the last, like you're already prepared 7 days ago, but the last 7 minutes are like up on your throat. Like everything has to fit together. The zipper cannot break, her makeup cannot like stay in the outfit. There's so much crazy stuff that happens before, but once they're on there and they're getting photographed and they look amazing, you're just like, okay, it was all worth it.
I asked this question to Maita as well, and I will ask you. Now, to Maita, I said, how do you know that it's the perfect cut? to you, I'll ask you, how do you know you've arrived at that perfect moment where the person can now walk through the red carpet and it's all good to go?
I think I would say you have to let go of the idea of perfection.
That's what she said.
Because, yeah, because especially for people like us, because I know her well too, like both of us have a very similar process of work. Like even if we see something look great, we're gonna sit there and like try to look for problems in that great. So the one thing I'm trying to unlearn is the need for perfection, because yes, there is something that you could do better next time, and maybe you take that review from whatever you've done now and decide how you're going to do better. But you also should learn to be proud of the work that you are putting out there, because you have worked hard on it and you have made sure you got everything right. So just calming down on the whole process of perfection, because I don't think there is something that can be perfect. And especially when you're on a red carpet, if something, like we've had issues where sometimes, let's say, a button breaks just before the celebrity has to walk down the red carpet, I don't have time to fix the button. So I use tape, I do whatever I can, fix it, make sure nobody that's photographing sees it, and that's it.
That's all
And
you
most like 90% of the time nobody would figure out that something went wrong,
yeah.
actually 99% of the time. So I think that's as close as perfect.
Do you want to share with me a story of any weird encounter that's happened so far?
Weird encounter.
I mean, any weird moment like that, where you've any challenging moment like that at the last minute, where you've had to kind of
I've,
fight through.
I've had a lot of these issues on fashion shows. So on backstages, a lot of people don't know this.
Mm,
We sometimes have anything between 40 seconds to 1 minute 20 seconds to change models. So if it's a show of, let's say, 80 garments and there would be like 30 models, we're changing models every single time they come back to the runway. So whenever you're doing, and this is the same with menswear and women's wear, if you're doing outfits that are very detailed, sometimes things break, things tear, and you have like major mishaps on the backstage.
huh,
And this has happened a lot of times. Like we've had buttons for shirts break, we've had zippers for pants just not go up, and we've just had to work our way, stick things, pin things, make sure that it doesn't show, and just
yeah,
let them walk
go.
on the runway, because you know what,
You have
that's
to
the
do
best we can do, because we can't skip the outfit. And this is, yeah, these are things that happen very naturally. Most people don't know about it.
it. How is event styling different from film styling, Shivangi?
Okay. When you have a client that's going to an event, the
Mm,
first things first you need to realize is your client is going to be photographed and be seen by many other people in the same strata on that same red carpet. So everybody has to look like they're a certain league.
mm,
And when you have somebody going down a red carpet, it's it's very important to have everything work to the T, because when they're even walking down the red carpet, so like a lot of actresses want really long trains on their red carpets, and like
mm,
especially like we see it with the Met Gala.
mm.
You have to make sure you can do things like that only when there are enough people there to help you out with your garment, because the worst thing that can happen to you is falling over.
Yeah.
And we all know that, how much that
Yeah.
gets photographed, how much that gets trolled, and people don't understand the amount of pressure a celebrity is in when they're in front of cameras like this, because everything's happening live. One wrong thing, one, let's say, your dress falling off, it's going to become international news.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure, like, on in red carpet styling there is no scope for error, because you cannot edit anything. If something happens and something goes wrong on the red carpet, for a lot of designers that could mean like your career is over. A lot of celebrities, your career is over. Like you need to have a really strong PR team
Cover
to
that
bounce
up.
back from that disaster. In terms of film styling, because you're in front of the camera, but you have the option to edit things out, you have the option to redo things. It's equally stressful, let's say, but um, when you're doing film, you also need to understand that your character is constantly in front of the camera, so you have to make sure that they're comfortable in what they're wearing, because you cannot be shooting where, of course, like in Bollywood we have that people shoot for hours and hours with really uncomfortable outfits, but we try our best to make the celebrity feel comfortable, because at the end of the day they're also emoting things. So
Yeah.
if somebody's poking you constantly or it's too tight, you can't breathe, these are really uncomfortable situations to put a human being in. But I feel like at the end of the day, you just need to understand that your client, whether it's red carpet, film, or a personal styling client, the whole idea is they're also human beings. Like, there is a very strong narrative in fashion, because it can be quite a ruthless industry, that, oh, models are just hangers, put them in whatever, they have to keep their mouth shut and walk. No, you have to understand they're also human beings.
Yeah.
The same way, actors are not just your porcelain dolls. You need to make sure that they feel comfortable in what they're wearing too. And again, the camera adds almost 10 kilos to your weight. So when you're designing for a client, especially if the client is curvy and they're, let's say, a little more uncomfortable with their body type or any of that sort, like, because when you're acting, I personally, after talking to so many actors, I realized that there are a lot of insecurities they come with too, even if they're very famous. So you kind of just have to take all of that into consideration, and just, I think, if you do things out of a good heart, things work out.
Yes, absolutely. So important. But there's also an aspect where in film you need to resonate and make sure that the character fits what they're portraying on screen, right? The entire story behind their character. From a fashion perspective, tell me, how do you go about the journey of coming up with a piece of clothing for every scene that connects with their character? How do you relate and come up with, okay, this person needs to wear this because their character is in this position? You, I'm not sure if my question's
Yeah,
clear to you, but
it's
it's
clear.
basically okay. Yeah.
It's a very good perspective that you brought on. I spoke to you, the last question I gave you, pretty much technicals of how film
Yeah.
and red carpet could be different. But in terms of when you transition from being a fashion designer to a costume designer, you need to understand the fashionable part of your job needs to leave your mind, because at the end of the day, your character might be somebody that's coming from a village. They've not heard of fashion.
Mm.
So, as a costume designer, the first thing you need to do is, when you have a script in front of you, you need to make sure you're doing 100% justice to that film, and not just your own craft. Like, your ego also, in that sense, has to leave, because this isn't about your clothing. This is
Yeah.
more about the director's vision.
Mm.
And let's say your character is fashionable, yes, you bring in exactly like the if you're doing something that's like a Sex in the City,
Mm.
every single character, they do live in a city that's very fashionable, but again, every single character has a different way of portraying who they are in terms of their clothes.
Yeah.
You know what the character is even before they start talking. So as a costume stylist, when you read every character, you kind of need to understand the nuances of the character, and in your head plan how one is going to look different from the other. Because when you're costume styling for a character, your clothes have to exude the personality. And if you're able to do that, you've done a good job. And if you're not able to do that, then you should really consider costume styling as a career. Like, think about whether it's for you. And the writer and the director is trusting you to execute their vision.
Yeah.
They're not trusting you to create a good collection for them. You
Absolutely.
need to make their characters come to life. So that's the first thing you need to understand as a costume stylist. It's not about fashion, it's about bringing characters to life.
Yeah. Very true. Give me some tips for budding stylists. It could be from the perspective of how they could start off in their journey or how they could sustain. I leave it to you with some tips for those who are looking to enter the industry.
Okay. When you finish university, the first thing you need to leave from your mind and kind of unlearn is, I know everything. I learned everything because I went to the best university, and I can do the job perfectly, because there is so much on the job learning that you need to get before you are able to start calling the shots. So that's the first thing that you need to kind of be very honest with yourself. First of all, which specter of the industry you want to work in. And in this time and age, I'd also say focus on your social media,
Mm.
because that's the first thing that's going to introduce you to people before you introduce yourself to them. Your
Yes.
portfolio is so important, and what you portray on social media, how you choose to dress yourself. And as a stylist, another very important thing is, if you go out, I'm not asking, like, I used to question myself this too, that why do I need to look like a model if that's not my job?
Mm.
But the kind of city that we live in, we know that it's very high fashion. So we
Mm.
kind of need to accept the fact that this is our environment, and we
Mm.
need to go out there looking the part, because fake it till you make it is a very real thing. You need to believe you're going to get a seat at the table. That's when you're going to get the seat at the table.
Yeah.
So you just go out there, get your experience. And the other thing I would want to say to budding stylists is, no job is too small. I started off my job as an intern, and I was bringing coffee. So I was not doing anything fashion. I was
Yeah.
bringing coffee.
Very
Like
true.
when you're an assistant, you're carrying people's garment that's like sweeping the floor. I was the person that was holding the train of, like, I when I started Ankita Lokhande for the first time, I didn't have a team because she was my first celebrity client, and she wore a dress that had a long trail. I went with her to the red carpet, and there were literally videos of me holding her train when she's walking. I was her stylist, but you know what? I had to do it.
You had to,
And
yes, part of your
no
job.
job is too small. If you're going to be able to cut your ego out of the situation, you're going to learn a lot and you're going to grow. I feel like the older I keep growing to, I have, like, this is something that I constantly tell myself: am I operating out of ego, or do I really want to achieve this? And then you do what it takes. And I also would want to say that do things with a kind heart, because our industry really teaches you how to be competitive and nasty sometimes to people. And and also, being, this might be controversial, but it's kind of true, a lot of people think that if you're nasty, your chances to grow are higher. No, it's not that way. You be a nice person, nice things happen to you. That's period.
Yeah, very true. I
Yeah.
believe it as well. Very true. Shivangi, where does personal styling, because this is all from the perspective of film and entertainment and TV and people who are out there, they are artists. But why is, and there's this whole narrative right now where personal, in fact, I didn't even know that a podcast or any of this is part of a personal brand per se. But right now, there's this entire narrative of a personal brand and a personal, from your industry perspective, there's an entire perspective on personal styling. Why is that important? And how can, say, people, everyday people like me who have no background or are not specialists in design, how can they kind of make sure that they're putting their best foot forward? What are some of the simple things?
I'd say first things first, with my journey in personal styling. I'm also somebody that wants to work with clients that are, let's say, like you said, they don't really have a background in fashion. I've had clients who come up to me and just say that, okay, like, I want to be this in this place in my career, but I don't know how to get there. Because especially when I moved to India, I realized a lot of people don't understand what it takes to go into a job interview. So obviously they're coming from smaller towns, they're not really exposed to, and when you come from a smaller town to a city like Mumbai, it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know what to do, and then they get scared, and then they start picking up things from here and there, and it's just like, you can tell that they end up looking like a mess because they really don't know what they're doing. And to me, these kind of people, I feel like they're really special because they come to you like a clean slate. And for me, personal styling has always been about building someone else's confidence, and I am so happy when I can make somebody feel like they are beautiful, because that's your goal from personal styling. If you are a personal stylist, the first thing you need to learn is making your client feel good about themselves. And we also have a narrative of, dark skin over fair skin kind of situation. So a lot of people say, oh, because you're dark skin, you can't wear a yellow, you can't wear red, it looks too bright. I am a stylist, and from a stylist perspective, I would say the darker your skin, the brighter tones you wear, the better you look. And at the end of the day, if your client is confident, whatever you're going to put on them is going to look stunning. And understanding body types, understanding proportions, this is all very important when you are personal styling. And if you're shopping for yourself, the first things first that you need to kind of unlearn is everything that everybody else tells you about, oh, how this is not going to look nice on you, this color doesn't suit you, this kind of jewelry doesn't look nice. you wear something that you feel 100% comfortable in, 100% confident in, and I can guarantee when you walk out the door, your day is going to be a lot better than what it used to be.
True. Yeah, very true. I'm going to come back to our leader then and ask you what was the experience like and what all went into actually bringing it alive on screen from, of course, your own role perspective.
So when the script was offered to me, I'm not gonna lie, this is like me first time saying this on camera. I was really scared because it's my first film as a costume designer. So in my head, I was like, can I really do this? And then obviously you're kind of thinking to yourself that it's a big project. Like the first thing that comes to your head is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And when I was able to like throw that out the window, I was like, you know what? Why not? Why can I not do this? And I was very lucky that I had a director that showed so much faith in me too. She just knew I would be able to. And that also helped me a lot. And for me, it was just one of the most challenging, beautiful journeys because we ended up creating the entire wardrobe for the female lead from scratch
Yeah.
because me and Metha both didn't think that there was something in the market that we really wanted to showcase on screen. So for me, this was beautiful. I was earlier just supposed to style, but I got to create abayas, I got to create jalabiyas, I got to do,
Create each of those clothes. Like it wasn't something, oh, okay.
and the time frame we had was ridiculously short, so that was the biggest challenge. But I had really nice assistants too. They really worked hard on the project too. They were with me to the T. So I would say it was a crazy ride, but we were able to make it all happen together at the end of it. And we were just very focused on the fact that the characters have every single character had to have a color story. Every single character had to have a personality through the kind of clothes that they're wearing. We also designed the maid uniforms and created them from scratch because we didn't like the maid uniforms that were available in the market. So every single maid that's in any shot, every
Yeah.
uniform has been made from scratch because we wanted Metha's vision in terms of detail orientation is brilliant. So for me, it was great because I could bring in so many ideas and she would just be so excited about it. And she's like, yeah, exactly. We should try this. Let's put more color. And I'm a very colorful person. I love colors. So when she told me, yeah, you know what? The film can be as many colors as you want. I was like, okay, here I am. Loving this. I'm gonna do my best. And yeah, I think it was just a fun experience. And it came together with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And a lot of fun.
My last question to you, Shivangi, is tell me what's next for you. What are you looking forward to in your journey and how are you planning to achieve it?
I would love to do another film. That's something that I am looking forward to. I am currently speaking to more producers, putting ideas out there, and that's something that I definitely want to do. Hopefully, that's in the cards very soon. I'm also designing collections for other designers, and I would be launching a brand with a business partner, but we're not yet. We're still in the works with that. We've designed our collection, so when I can start talking about it, I'd be very excited too. But at the moment, yeah, that's what's in the works, and hopefully things pan out the way I'm planning. And yeah,
Inshallah, like they say it.
inshallah.
Inshallah, and all the very best to you. Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
so
me,
much.
Shivangi. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Knock, knock. Are you still here? Well, I'm super happy that you are. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Please do like, share, and subscribe to Karishma Connect across platforms. And I look forward to bringing you many more such amazing stories from around the world. If you've got one, please do get in touch. Lots of love.